kommer Pippi Långstrump, tjolahopp, tjolahej, tjolahoppsan dag. Här kommer Pippi Långstrump, här kommer faktiskt jag. Har du sett min dag?
Hi everyone in Mitzi's class. My name is Hannah and I'm from Sweden. And today I would like to share with you some of my all-time favorite children's stories growing up. But first, let's just look where Sweden is on a map. So as you can see, Sweden is located right here, very far up north, so we get long and cold winters with a lot of snow and pretty mild but beautiful, beautiful summers. As you can see, Sweden is pretty far from Brazil, so I don't know if any of you have heard any Swedish children's stories before. If you have, this might be some good repetition, and if not, I hope that you can learn something new today. One of my all-time favorite books growing up was this one about Pippi Longstrump, or Pippi Longstocking, as she's called in English. The book was written by Astrid Lindgren in 1948, so it's a pretty old book, and the story came to be one day when Astrid's daughter was home from school sick, and she asked her mom to tell her a story about Pippi. So Astrid did, and the story about Pippi came to be. And these stories about Pippi has had a big influence on the Swedish people and Swedish children, so the author is actually so famous that she appears on our 20-crown bill in Sweden. I'll show that a little bit closer for you as well. She also has Pippi accompanying her on the bill right here. So who is Pippi? Pippi is a 9-year-old girl with freckles and bright red hair that she always wears in 2 braids that stand straight out from her head. She lives in a small Swedish village in a big, big yellow house, all by herself, without either one of her parents. She has a pet monkey named Mr. Nilsson and a horse named Lilla Gubben, which translates to little old man. Hidden in her house, she has a big suitcase full of gold coins that she sometimes uses to buy toys for the other children in the village. Her 2 best friends are Tommy and Annika, who live next door. They have a very strong friendship and play together almost every day. Pippi is a very peculiar little girl with many strengths and talents. For example, she is the strongest girl in the entire world and can lift pretty much anything. For example, her horse. But no one knows exactly how or why she is so extremely strong, so her strength is a little bit of a mystery. Pippi is a very special girl, and she does things a little bit differently from most people, such as her schoolwork, her housekeeping, or even business. So I guess you could call her pretty innovative. Pippi is a very independent girl, and the main reason that I wanted to share this exact story with you is because I think there is something very important that we can all learn from Pippi, no matter how old we are or no matter where we live. First of all, it's okay to be different. Pippi is very different from most people, but she's still confident in who she is, and you should be as well. Number 2, she stands up for herself and for others when something isn't right, and that's so important to do. Number 3, she is very strong-willed, and there's nothing wrong with knowing what you want. And then, last but not least, she is a good friend. But before I say goodbye, I would just like to read to you the beginning of this story about Pippi. Way out, at the end of a tiny little town, was an old overgrown garden. And in the garden was an old house. And in the house lived Pippi Longstocking. She was 9 years old, and she lived there all alone. She had no mother and no father. And that was, of course, very nice, because there was no one to tell her to go to bed just when she was having the most fun. And no one could make her take cod liver oil when she much preferred candy. Once upon a time, Pippi had had a father, of who she was extremely fond. Naturally, she had had a mother too, but that was so long ago that Pippi didn't remember her at all. Her mother had died when Pippi was just a tiny baby and laid in a cradle and howled so that nobody could go anywhere near her. Pippi was sure that her mom was now up in heaven, watching her little girl through a peephole in the sky. And Pippi often waved up to her and yelled, "Don't worry about me, I'll always come out on top." Her father, Pippi had not forgotten. He was a sea captain who sailed in the great ocean, and Pippi had sailed with him on his ship until one day her father blew overboard in a storm and disappeared. But Pippi was absolutely certain that he would come back. She would never believe that he had drowned. She was sure he had floated until he landed on an island inhabited by cannibals, and she thought that he had become the king of all the cannibals and went around all day with a crown on his head. Her father had bought the old house in the garden many years ago. He thought he would come there to live with Pippi when he grew old and could no longer sail the seas. And then this annoying thing had to happen, that he blew into the ocean. And while Pippi was waiting for him to come back, she went straight home to Villa Villekulla. That was the name of the house. It stood there ready and waited for her. So that was just the beginning of this book, but if you would like to continue to read it or listen to the audio version of it, Mitzi has the information, so just ask her. So yeah, I hope that you learned a little bit more about Swedish children's books today. And yeah, goodbye, or as we say in Sweden, hejdå!